How many people in the room have met Susie before? Hands up. How many haven't met her before? You're all in for a big treat. I'm just about to tell you that now. Susie, we're going to talk about technology, which is your expertise, and I'm not pretending that you're an expert on energy or climate transition, but you are an expert on enabling technologies and technology platforms and generational technologies in the way that I've come to know you. So let's start with the anchor institutions like the University of Glasgow and the innovation districts that are now emerging around the city. And Susan made the point that Glasgow's been a kind of world champion of the spatialisation of the economy. Even before we had the innovation districts, we had the media district, we had the financial services district, we've got the events campus, you know, we've got the city centre, right? This is a world champion of spatialised economy. So what is it that anchor institutions bring to all of that? And what role do those kind of spatialised clusters of innovation play in relation to sustainable industry and its innovation? How do you see that working?
So I guess innovation districts broadly are these kind of defined urban geographies. And I guess put really simply, it's a connection of people, place, technology to create opportunities for all. And that is particularly important for us in Glasgow Riverside Innovation District, where we have such disparity within a relatively small 700-acre geography, and Susan alluded to that. It's also, I suppose, one of our sort of key missions through the Innovation District to position Glasgow as a leader in the future of technology and innovation broadly. And we can provide, I suppose, that catalyst in terms of a catalyst in relation to kind of economic growth. Critically is the partnership that we have with the city and also Scottish Enterprise in realising what we're trying to do. In terms of infrastructure, I think Anton mentioned earlier, as a university, we were founded in 1451, right? And our mission at that time was to serve the city of Glasgow and to serve the people of Glasgow. And that was set out in our founding document, the People Bull. And as a civic university, that mission guides our work today. So we're an anchor of the city, we're now an anchor of grid. Now our core business in terms of that we're subsidised to undertake research, learning and teaching, but that impact agenda is absolutely critical to what we're doing now. We are a trusted partner of the business community, and I think there are various reasons for that. Our global standing as a top 100 university, the sheer size of the University of Glasgow is a key knowledge anchor. We've got 12,000 staff and 40,000 students. We've got that ambitious capital plan that was mentioned, so 1.8 billion over 15 years. Most of the cranes that you see in the West End on the beautiful sunny skyline, which is unusual, today are connected in some way to the district. What's really important though is that we've demonstrated that we can deliver large-scale projects. So during COVID, we had 4 buildings built as part of the redevelopment of the Western Infirmary. So from the Advanced Research Centre to the new Adam Smith building, we were building then, and we've got a specific sort of university sustainability standard. So those buildings, we've got another 11 in our portfolio, which through the investment zone process we developed. So they already have joint venture partners who have basically offered us 200 million in match funding for those. Those developments that we have in train, and Susan mentioned the vacant and derelict land. Now, 85 hectares of that are within our grid boundary, of which 17 are in very close proximity to existing R&D assets.
It's a lot of land.
So it's a lot, but it's a huge opportunity. It's complicated because there are mixed landowners, but there's a massive opportunity, and the developments that we have in development now, but also kind of within that portfolio, they are about supporting our ambitions as an innovation district. So our enterprises that are coming out of the university, we don't want them to go away. We want them to remain sticky to Glasgow, sticky to grid. We want the jobs to stay here. So they need to be the right infrastructure with the right fit out, the right expansion space to keep them within the city. They're supporting our sustainability goals, and they are creating, importantly, engaging places for communities. So if you look at the campus in the West End, there are lovely sort of public realm areas between those buildings, and also a key feature is that the ground floor of all those buildings is public access. The new Health Innovation Hub that is about to open in November this year, though, is probably a perfect example of that convening power. So just as an example, so the council will support a kind of planning element of that. It's Scottish Enterprise Land. Cadans are the industrial operator and investors. We received Strengthened Places funding from UK government, and we're working with a local college. So the university and local college are working on an employability pathway. So through a memorandum of understanding with them, which will take young people from the college in Govan directly into that health innovation hub and to access jobs within that. So that's a perfect example of that connectivity between all of those partners. But one thing I would say is that we don't want to create a science park. No. It has to be, as Susan alluded to, mixed use placemaking and really thoughtful placemaking. Exactly, exactly. So that you're not pushing out communities, you're embracing the communities that are there, and you're empowering and enabling through that infrastructure. So that's where partners come in, because there's certain things that aren't in the university's gift and certain things that are. So we need to think about housing, transport, green active travel, all of that in the context of these developing enterprise hubs.
So in a way, what I'm hearing you say is that an idea that's about creating and fostering a new kind of economy in a certain location is also about fostering a new kind of community with sustainable lifestyles and with sustainable amenities. It's not one or the other. You're actually trying to use one to enable you to do all of it.
You do. And you know, two things: community engagement and connection is absolutely critical for that. And so we've got dedicated teams that are kind of working with those local communities. And also the programming within it isn't just about bricks and mortar, as we've heard with Sustainable Ventures. It's about the program, and it's about that softer infrastructure that will enable innovation to happen, and also social innovations. We're doing quite a lot of work in the social innovation space, and we also have a civic fund which is about to relaunch this week, where the university has been supporting, I think we've supported to date about 30 community-based organisations across the Innovation District. So that's everything from the Glasgow Boxing Academy to food pantries, to projects that are diversionary activity for young people. So that has been great for those organisations because we've supported them. They all link in some way to the UN Sustainable Goals, which again is really core to what we do at the university. But importantly for us, it's also connected us to the opportunities of place, the challenges of place, but also the people and the communities. So we've really built great connections, and we're now looking at the next stage for those communities. So I'm having a conversation this week with one of those community organisations who want to utilise our research expertise to support how they measure impact, and also connecting to our other programmes of work, like our internship programmes, to make sure that they're aware and they're visible to those, because they're directed at, some of them are directed at third sector organisations. So it's just, it's closing all these loops and making those connections.
Brilliant. I mean, we could talk about this for an hour, Susie, but let's jump to the other end of the telescope for a minute. So we've been talking with this group of, fabulous businesses and innovators and thinkers and academics all day about sustainability. And of course, part of the context in which this is happening are these massive generational changes in technology that are going on. So why don't you just talk to us a little bit about what you think the new generation of enabling technologies are and what they can bring to this task of, planetary renewal, if I could put it at its broadest, its broadest possible level.
So the really interesting thing about enabling, sometimes people now call them critical technologies, are that they allow businesses in all sectors to adapt, to innovate, to become more productive, to become more sustainable. And Glasgow and Central Scotland that is a key strength of ours. So that's something that is should be a really sort of key focus, I think, also sort of for government investment. So examples would be electronics manufacturing, sensors, space economy, satellite technologies, data infrastructure, AI, IoT, that sort of thing. And quantum would be sort of an emerging enabling technology, and again, really important for grid, for Glasgow, also for the Glasgow City Innovation District. So in terms of greening business, enabling technologies can support businesses to green their products, their operations, their services. Now that might be low-cost digital solutions, off-the-shelf, sort of low-cost digital solutions, all the way through to sort of large-scale industrial scale innovations, I suppose. And so, I mean, some examples of these over the years. So previously to working in the Innovation District, I worked in Glasgow City of Science and Innovation, and I came across really interesting SMEs all the time. And enabling technologies was a key interest of mine personally, and we used to do a lot of work kind of around that. So in terms of blockchain and satellite technology, just to give you some examples to bring these things to life. So there was a great company called Trade and Space. They still exist. They're doing great things. And what they do is they use satellite and blockchain technology to support traceable supply chains. So they particularly use this enabling tech to support deforestation-free supply chains, particularly related to the world's largest coffee producers. Now that's really important for supporting sort of EU Green Deal compliance, but also generating millions in green finance. On the other end of the scale, it's a much, much smaller company. So if we look at 3D printing, so 3D printing can create sort of prototypes and products with minimal impact on the environment. So Rothio was a company that I came across, which is a Glasgow-based luxury eco-fashion brand. And
a Glasgow-based luxury eco-fashion brand.
Called Rothio, which is Spanish. Cool. There's a story behind that, but I can't tell you, it's a bit early. But anyway, there was an interesting story behind that. But they integrate advanced, so they're working with the National Manufacturing Institute down at AMIDS, specifically, they're using those advanced manufacturing techniques in combination, so 3D printing, with its traditional craftsmanship to create these innovative handbag designs, actually, which are featured globally. So these
are sustainable handbags?
They are, but through the 3D printing sort of.
With 3D printing,
But so the point being is that it doesn't really matter what size of company you are. You can be integrating, adopting and diffusing these technologies. But one of the key things is for a university and for the districts, one of our key roles to play in this is that, yes, we're about discovery research, but we should be more and more about translation of these enabling technologies into industry, and we are. So what we have to do as universities is to increase what we would call the absorptive capacity of businesses to adopt and to diffuse more of these technologies. That's a role for the higher education sector, and it's a role for FE as well. And in Glasgow, actually, the FE sector are doing some great work through the CLIC programme, which is specifically looking at diffusion and adoption of technologies, and particularly, important for foundational economy, which make up a huge percentage of our local economy and our UK economy sort of broadly. So, and we absolutely need to look at diffusion adoption for sustainability and for increased productivity.
Brilliant. Now, we could go into a long debate about the foundational economy, but you've made the critical point, I think, that these technologies are not just about creating high-value, high-wage, high-tech clusters. They're also about making the everyday lives of very ordinary people much more manageable and much more livable. It's very helpful. We've got two questions here, Susie, that have come in. First question, maybe this is the easy one. How does the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District differ from or complement the Glasgow City Innovation District and the Advanced Manufacturing District? You've already talked a little bit about this, but just give us a sense. Do you play together? Are you a team or are you competing?
Of course we play together. Yeah, we're actually working... Okay, let me start. So each of the innovation districts, I would say, have points of distinction, and each of the innovation districts have points of complementarity, and also where we're working in partnership. So as an example, we both ourselves, and I would say the City Innovation District, have prowess in quantum technologies. We are part of these UK quantum hubs, so we're all working together. It would be ridiculous not to sort of connect and to collaborate with those who have similar sort of strengths on these big, massive projects, and particularly where, I mean, quantum is one of those where we haven't realised the potential of that technology at an economic level. So there's a lot of work ongoing to kind of to do that, and that is a key enabling critical technology for us. So from an infrastructure perspective and from a discovery and R&D perspective, so that's something that we're doing really closely together. What sets GRID, what is quite different in relation to GRID is what I mentioned, and Susan mentioned it earlier, is, well, one, the Riverside location.
Yep.
There's an opportunity there, I think, in terms of green energy. There is an opportunity there in terms of the vacant and derelict land opportunity. If you're a city innovation district, it's slightly more restricted in terms of how you can expand, but that's something that we need in the city. So, for example, there's a dearth of wet labs. We need wet lab space, right? And again, if we don't have that, then we might lose some of those companies that are spinning out of our universities doing amazing things in health and life sciences and precision medicine. That's one of the reasons why we've got the Health Innovation Hub developing in very close proximity to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, next to our living lab and our clinical innovation zone. They want to be close to patients. They want to be close to those clinical experts. But we need more lab space kind of in the city. So we have an opportunity through that land, which, you know, the swathes of vacant and derelict land, and unfortunately caused by deindustrialization, depopulation, to do something there for the city. So there are these different, but I would say complementary strengths. We're working directly with, just as an example, with the City Innovation District, particularly on a couple of social innovation programs, one called Ignite, which I'll highlight. So Ignite was a spin-off, I suppose, of the Harvard Bloomberg work that Graham there, sitting at the front, and Susan have been leading, which was kind of post-COP26.
It's just a young man called Graham Smith.
Graham Smith, who's the head of innovation for the city.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, the Harvard Bloomberg program, I think took part, you can correct me if I'm wrong, in 8 cities across the world. I was involved in that, as I think we were quite unusual in that it was a city program, but the innovation districts and myself and City of Science and Innovation were part of the Glasgow cohort, and we were particularly looking at the issue of inequality and sort of diversity and inclusion issues within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so we then translated the learnings for that program into something called Ignite, which was run by a local community organization called Decamai. And we have taken something like 28 Black-led businesses through that particular program, and we did that in partnership connecting with minority ethnic entrepreneurs, both from the Glasgow City Innovation District and the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District, to look at that. It's been a highly successful program, so we're now looking at how do we expand and develop that. So again, in terms of that inclusive growth and looking at the challenges of place, and how we better serve some communities who have been disadvantaged by the system to a certain extent. You know, these are the ways that we're working sort of in partnership with our fellow districts.
Brilliant. Now, we're completely out of time, but there are 2 other questions I really need to ask you. Can we do this one very, very quickly? Are we learning anything from King's Cross in London? Are we going to be similar, better, much better, really much better?
It's interesting. So we
have to be quick.
Yeah. We undertook a land audit of GRID, and one of the recommendations was basically we need to look at places that are comparable with where we are. Which is not that.
Yeah.
However, Newcastle Helix is.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of comparative analysis between what we have here and what others have done well. So that whole learning process, and actually I've been in contact since the summit, summit, the Connected Places Catapult Summit with Leeds as well.
Good.
So yes, we are absolutely doing that analysis work right now.
this is a kind of yes-no question, I think. Is there a case for compulsory sale, not compulsory purchase, of some of the vacant land in order to really accelerate the development around grid?
I think that's maybe one for the city.
One for Susan and Graham. Well,
Yeah.
if you wish to answer, it's Jim Brown who's asking the question. So, Jim, come and see Susan and Graham at the end. The final question, this really is a question for you. Anonymous tells us, you know, the Glasgow innovation story seems to be absolutely amazing. It seems a bit of a hidden gem. How should we tell the world about innovation in Glasgow?
Yeah, I think we need, I guess our story is at different levels. So we need, in my mind, we need a regional narrative. And actually to your previous, the person that asked the previous question, we need to make all these connections and get that regional narrative right. And then at a district level, we need to kind of talk about what's our distinctive offer kind of within those. But I think the story is getting out there. I compare the innovation ecosystem and the visibility of what we have to offer to sort of 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it's quite different.
Amazing.
And I know you've done some work on this and looking at our capabilities and then connecting that to our global reputation. I do think we're getting there, but I do think we need to continue to make that concerted effort at coming up with, we're certainly at a Riverside Innovation District level, putting together, we've spent the last 3 months putting together a proposition supported by the Business of Cities, you know, for grid to try and really unpick that. And all that evidence, it needs to be based on evidence. And James talked about, you know, having that, you know, really understanding our areas of strength. You know, the regional intelligence hub has really kind of supported with that. Our work with Savills, looking at the grid opportunity, is supporting that. So it really has to be based on, you know, hand on heart. Here are our areas of comparative advantage, and here is the opportunity for investors, for business, for communities.
Well, my sense is actually you're doing a brilliant job here, and so is Susan and Graham. And the key point is for everybody in the room to start telling the story as well, and I'm sure you know how to help them do that. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Susie Mitchell, thank you.